biohacking and longevity optimization specifically for women, building clinics in the Middle East, and investing in longevity. My guest today is Judith Mueller. She is doing all of that. She hosts the Biohackers Eve podcast, which specifically focuses on longevity optimization and biohacking for women. She's also in a network of longevity clinics, and she's building longevity clinics in the Middle East. And she recently co-organized the Longevity Week in Berlin, which is a big meetup for people that are into longevity. We came together today because she's speaking at and attending Zelar City. Zelar City is a 6-week pop-up city in Berlin. So that means for 6 weeks, people from all over the world that want to solve aging live at the same place in Berlin. We will eat together, we will work next to each other, we'll maybe even work with each other, and we'll definitely have enough time to make deep connections and speak with everyone about how we will make it possible to solve aging. So without further ado, my conversation with Judith Mueller. Enjoy. How about we start by you telling us a bit about yourself, like a 5-minute summary of who you are and what you're currently working on.
Sure. So I'm Judith Mueller, and this is next to me my longevity cat, which may or may not pop into the screen at some point when he feels like it. So let me start by telling you about me, perhaps. I am a venture capital investor in the space. I've actually been a biohacker for the last 15 years. And you can see I've literally tried every single program. So I've got all the gadgets, basically. My very first piece of furniture was an infrared sauna. So you can imagine what home looks like. Very adventurous there. So what am I doing at the moment? So I'm wearing a couple of hats. I'm advising a very large single family office on their medtech investments. We're actually building longevity clinics together in the Middle East. So we're launching Dubai later this year. Around that, I've actually, because I've got a lot of friends in the space, building some sort of longevity offering globally, I've actually put my heads together with a very dear group of friends, and basically we're building the protocols for longevity clinics, because at the moment it's very disparate. Everyone's sort of, building something. There's a wide variety between, you can start from medical all the way to biohacking. You have lifestyle in between. You can do prevention, you can do treatment, you can do early detection. So there's a sort of large spectrum, and obviously you have the geographic reach as well. So we, in the network, we have people all the way from San Francisco to Singapore really, and from Cape Town to Copenhagen. So it really is global, and we're getting a lot of input from that. So thanks everyone for, for contributing to this network. The other thing is obviously, advise a lot of companies in the space. I look at a lot of investments in the space, both for myself as well as for other people with money essentially who want to bring the space further. So it's also very exciting to see the grassroots movement like Azusa Italia and now Zelar City coming together. And finally, as I've said, look, I've been in the space for a long time. As many people have, I've come into it through my own health journey, and it took a while to fix that health problem, but I learned so much in the process. I think, again, as with many people. And one thing that took me a couple of years to realize out of these 15 plus years now is that not everything is all that great for women. So basically my thinking is, look, there's about 20%, give or take, that is different, that we don't know yet because there's a data gap, and or we're just not talking about, because we're simplifying things for everyone to be able to understand it, which actually means we're oversimplifying things sometimes. So if you're talking intermittent fasting, cryotherapy, these kind of things, cold exposure, many other things as well, which I think we do need to differentiate just a little bit more. Basically that's why I'm launching a platform along with the podcast. The podcast is launched the next couple of weeks. It's going to be called Biohacking Eve. And basically what I'm doing is a real deep dive in what are the actual differences. So you start with, and we'll talk about this later, you start with the basics. For me, the positive basic, if you're a couch potato, you do Peter Attia, you read the book, you do the program, you really follow that. Then if you want to go to the next level, I think the all-time classic for me is Boundless by Ben Greenfield. If you can do 10% of what he covers in the book, you're doing more than, I think, 98% of the people out there. But it's in the doing, right? So if you do that, and then basically I add the other 20% that is different for women. So if you fall into that group, I think do that trajectory, and then let's talk about the differences. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's super cool. So the longevity clinics, so you're literally building clinics where, like, for example, if I or somebody like wants to work on longevity, they are trained doctors, or how does it
It
work?
really depends on the clinic, right? That's why I'm saying I think there's a broad range of offerings. So it really started with the idea of you have two disparate ideas. For example, if you look at what Dave Asprey did start in California with Upgrade Labs, which used to be Bulletproof Labs. So it's
Mhm.
literally the latest and greatest in gadgets. And there's also the big gadgets that you don't want to pay 100 grand for and you don't want to have space in your own home. So you're literally starting, have that center, you come in once a week, you do your IVs, you do your, whatever, your ozone therapy, you do, all the other gadgets that he's got, obviously cryotherapy, etc. He had that as well. And so you've got that sort of crazy end of the spectrum. And then you've got the, if you look at, for example, how medicine in the wider sense developed in Germany, you have a lot of these Heilpraktiker, which are basically, so they're not
Mhm.
registered doctors, they're more sort of alternative, not as alternative medicine, but they're sort of definitely a different path, a naturopath basically, but they're much closer to, well, to nature really, as the name would suggest. So coming back to your question on that, because we have such a broad range, I think it's important to see what protocols can we actually build on either of these, what makes sense, because there's a lot of things out there which we're only just starting to study. So there's a lot of new techniques and technologies out there, but you also have the tried and tested techniques with something like acupuncture, for example. I think to the West is a very foreign concept, the energy flows and the energy currents. But because in China it's something you do, I wouldn't say every day, but it's something that's very, very common, and no one would raise an eyebrow about that. In the West, however, because we've now done the studies to the point where the medical community seems to be satisfied, again, to the point that now the insurers even pay for it, which sort of in the West is the sign of this is working, let's try that, or at least this is the current standard of care, if that makes sense. So coming back to your questions on the medical clinics, yes, there are some clinics which have more of a medical background. And again, they're more the ones which will help you implement the lifestyle changes that you need to do. So, they might do some basic blood tests and we'll fix your micronutrients, all the rest of it. If you need deeper work, you might need to go somewhere else, but we can help you on the implementation. For example, in our case, what we're building in Dubai, we actually have a heavy genetic focus, which is actually as yet still relatively rare in the clinics. I think a lot of people are testing for something, but no one really tells you what to do with it. So it's really about the follow up and the integration of all that, because it's great having 70 pages of this is your mutation
Mhm.
ABC, but what do I do with this? More blueberries, less blueberries, more spinach, more broccoli? I don't know. So really going into that. So for us, for example, in our clinic, we are specifically looking at actionable genes around long-term diseases. So this could be, for example, BRCA2, which is a high breast cancer risk, what you need to do around that. But I think that there are lots of different approaches, which I think are very promising. And now we just need to make sure that we unify and standardize the offering, not to lose variety, but to make sure that if you go into more this niche or more that niche, you're getting the best care that's actually globally available, no matter where you are.
Okay, so that what you're building now is like a connection. So different people have their clinics, and you try to make like a one standardized system. Or
I'm building two different things, right? So I'm building the clinics in the Middle East, starting with Dubai. So these are our own clinics, as it were, and I'm getting my friends, my colleagues together on a network, which is a separate thing.
Mhm.
We meet, every once in a while and basically say, okay, I found, or someone's got a question, what do you think about XYZ technique? What do you think about this supplement? Which supply should we be using for, I don't know, infrared sauna, for example, if we
Mhm.
want to incorporate that in our offering, which again, not everyone might want to be able to do or might be able to do because they may or may not have the space and budget. But it's really to set, if you want to have an infrared sauna, we have all put our heads together and say, this is the best one out there globally.
Mhm. Ah, okay, okay, I understand. You were talking about like using the energy flow as a therapy. Like I don't know, like you say the insurance pays for it. I don't know. I've never heard about it. Can you maybe explain like
In
what do you mean by that?
some countries in the West, depending on your condition,
Hmm.
supposedly acupuncture is can heal many, many
Ah,
things.
okay.
For some conditions, I mean, I've heard it as alternative treatments for tinnitus, for
Hmm.
headaches, for back pains, for, I mean, the human body is so curious because there's so many things that can hurt and go wrong, basically. So again, we don't know if it's the right or the best thing for XYZ. But different countries have adopted different approaches, and some insurers are actually paying for it as an alternative medicine, basically.
What is your connection to Zelar City?
What is my connection to Zelar City? I have many dear friends who've been to Zuzulu and Vitalia. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to join yet for various reasons. And the fact that, so I've spent a lot of time traveling in my life. I come from Berlin originally. I've spent 15 years in UK and many, many years and months on the road, basically. I'm currently based in Berlin. And it's so nice to actually see longevity and the idea of longevity spreading. Actually, that's why we built Longevity Week Berlin for the first time this year, which again is a different offering, right? It's much more, it is much broader community. It's really about bringing longevity to the public, the idea of longevity, the idea that you do have this in your hand to a certain extent. And I think Zeller City is approaching a different crowd. And basically, for me, it's brilliant because it's bringing a lot of the things that Zuzulu and Vitalia have offered that I haven't managed to take up yet to the place where I do spend a lot of my time in, basically. So,
Yeah, yeah. So you are going to be speaking and also attending?
yes.
Or okay, but you never joined any pop-up city or anything similar to this?
I've joined sort of similar concepts elsewhere, which weren't necessarily longevity related. And I think there's actually a call to action to anyone who will actually see this. So one big goal of mine in life is to build a biohacked, longevity optimized village for entrepreneurs. So the idea is really that we're creating and this is a permanent village basically, but based on the idea of these pop-ups. And the idea really is to create the perfect environment for you to function on a physical, mental, emotional level. So it's basically going to be a hometown, and for many it's going to be a second, a third, a fourth home, depending on the location that we put it on. The idea is to put it somewhere with mild climate, so that people who live, for example, in Germany, between November and March, I don't want to be here. It's not nice weather, and I know just how much I need the sunshine. So we have a couple of locations in mind at the moment. There's also various different initiatives. So basically, the idea is to build a permanent city that has all the infrastructure on one hand for the physical well-being, but because I think target audience makes it sound very clinical, but the people, the community that we really want to bring with that, and we've actually started to grow and curate that community, is all people who are really moving the needle in something. So I want to have entrepreneurs that want to change the world for the better on, whatever their niche might be. It doesn't have to be health related, whatever the niche might be, but I want to put them in the best state of mind and body for having all these nourishing items around them to really go and move that needle.
And be surrounded by other entrepreneurs, which is super
Exactly.
valuable. Yeah, yeah. Why did you decide to work on aging?
Do you know what? That's a very good question. I mean, I've again through my own health journey, I've been in this since my late teens, early 20s, really, and I'm a little bit older than that now. So it's been about a decade and a half, more than that actually, and in my own journey, and I think really bringing that to the fore of let's make that more of my daily focus and expand the daily focus beyond what do I need to do to how can I help other people. It's been a couple of years now. It's really been a trajectory into it.
Okay, okay. In the longevity, you already mentioned like the book Boundless, but in this whole space, like, what are the people that you really look up to?
I think there's different categories of people. I mean, there are many really amazing scientists out there. I think there are also many amazing entrepreneurs. I think we're also starting to professionalize the investment environment a little bit more. I mean, you've seen funds like Apollo, for example, emerge. You're seeing both first-time funds as well as existing funds incorporating or looking at incorporating longevity offerings. So I'm actually advising a couple of them on what form and or shape this can take, also which area you want to go into, because I think for me we don't really have a definition of longevity yet, and I think that also impacts the fact on how and where do we spend our money. And I think at the opening ceremony of Longevity Week, we had one panel of a couple of my co-founders. I think there was one moderator and four of my co-founders and also guests from other areas, basically. And we literally spent 45 minutes discussing what is longevity to you. So it is a very, very different topic, right? For me, for example, when I look at the investment space, I think that the whole biotech scene and looking for the magic pill to cure XYZ and not really that. What we're looking for now isn't really what we're looking at now isn't really biotech so much as longevity biotech. And what we mean by longevity biotech is not, we have 5,000 diseases and we need to find a molecule to cure each of these, but longevity biotech is much more upstream. You're much more looking at if we can figure out why cells are aging, why they become deranged, for want of a better word, really. And we can prevent and even reverse, and we've got a much better chance of not even getting into so many of the diseases in the first place. So that is one area of investment. But again, that is very much yes, it is a moonshot. It is a long goal. I don't know if it's going to take 5 or 50 years. I think we will get there, but it's going to take a while. Also, because especially if you look at the development of AI, for example, how AI is progressing in terms of technology, it is not linear. It's certainly not linear. It's not exponential, but it's in leaps and bounds. So if you look at what Ray Kurzweil was actually saying, so he's written a lot of books on the singularity based AI developing, and there were predictions of when will AI pass the Turing test. So basically, if you as a human talk to something and you cannot distinguish whether the other party is human and or a machine, basically that's when AI has passed the Turing test. And predictions have varied wildly over the years. Anything from back in the 1960s, some people said we're going to have in the 90s, we're going to have 1,000. Some people say it's going to take us another 100 years. And the current prediction, I think his latest update was actually from this year. And the current prediction is it could very well be somewhere between 26 and 29. So we're actually very, very close. So if we translate this to longevity, it's like, well, obviously, most people out there don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Most people who are researching on something cannot or do not want to talk about it until it's really ready for publication. So until this leap and bound has already happened and it's just waiting for adoption and adaptation to the mass market, basically. I think another part really is, the second part from me is people like Brian Johnson. And, you can think about him whatever you want. You can think he's batshit crazy good or batshit crazy bad. I'm not really bothered with that. I think the fact that, to me, he's like an Elon Musk of longevity. Like him or not, the fact that he's out there and then he's talking about it and that he's really widening people's perceptions of what is possible and what is going to be possible, I think that is the real job he's doing. Whether you're spending, 4, 5, 6, or 7 figures a year on your health, I don't think that's the takeaway. I think for me, really, the takeaway is you can take things into your hand to a certain degree. And that's why I admire Brian Johnson. I think, Boundless, as I said, for me is the top resource. I think if you've read Boundless and you're actually doing, obviously think for yourself. Again, if you're a woman, some things are different. You need to look into differentiation for your personal health. But I think he's giving us a very good roadmap to many, many things. I think if you actually read Boundless and you're actually doing 10, 20, 30% of what he's doing, you're on a very good path.
What do you think is right now in longevity the biggest bottleneck that we have? Or like, what is the biggest problem in longevity that definitely needs to be solved so we can be able to solve aging and make meaningful progress?
Yeah, and I think many people expect this to be, we need the magic pill for X. We need we need Ozempic 2.0. We need whatever, what is people. I don't think it's that. I think all of these things are in development because there are enough people who either do want to change the world for the better in that direction and or want to make money, which again is not a bad motivation. It's, I think, that's how our system works in the modern world. Basically, that's how we allocate money. But I don't think that is really, again, we don't know when that's going to come. I think things are going to come, but we don't know when they're going to come. So I think for now, the real bottleneck, what regards real people out there, is habits. People aren't doing the basics. And we know about this. I mean, again, read Peter Attia, it's there. You might have it in some variation, etc. But for me, it really is eat, move, sleep, relax, socialize. Get those 5 things dialed in, and I think you're 80% there. If you don't get them dialed in, you can take any pill and supplement that you want from what is available at the moment. it's not really going to help you, or it's not really going to, it's not really able to do its job because it's not building on a good baseline.
So, but if you see it from a perspective of that you want to live like really long, like ridiculously long, like people where people will laugh, like it's not like Peter Thiel, he says like, oh, 120 is probably the max. But if you plan to live like 200, 300,000 years, like you're not going to do that with exercise and sleep and
No, I think you do need that, but I think we're not talking 1,000 years at the moment. We're not
mhm,
talking 200 years. We're talking,
yeah,
are you going to make it beyond 80? Because at the moment, life expectancy
that's true.
on a global range is actually declining at the moment. So let's focus on that. Let's get the mad scientists to look into how can we get to 300.
Hmm.
But unless we can actually, it's again, Brian Johnson, don't die, right? Focus on
Yeah,
the basics.
yeah. Ah, okay, I see. So it's more about like the general population leaves so much on the table right now, and
Yes.
the scientists, we can let them do their job and
Yeah.
just try. Yeah. Okay, I
Exactly,
see
and
that.
actually take what's available to you. And I think the other takeaway from me from Brian Johnson, I think people also say, "Oh my God, he's so extreme," right? Leave the money part aside, but they're saying he's so regimented, he's so extreme. Life must be really boring and or otherwise for him or stressful. And I think no, that's not the takeaway for me. The takeaway for me is there's so many different dimensions that you can do things on. I mean, for me, for example, not drinking alcohol is a no-brainer because I've never drunk alcohol in my life. So that's not
Hmm.
even something I need to worry about. For someone who really, who comes from Munich perhaps, and they really like their Oktoberfest, and for them it's a gathering with family or with friends. For them it's a social element, but they're not the kind who go dancing on the tables at 2 a.m. basically because they've had maybe too much. So for them, they might want to reduce, but they might not want to give up. And
Hmm.
for me, this could be other things, right? I mean, if you're smoking, if you're doing things like that, yes, that is a no-brainer. You definitely do need to give these up. And this might be a lot harder for you. So this might be the number one thing that moves the needle for you, and also might be the hardest thing for you. But if you're not necessarily in that position, if you're in a position of you're going out to restaurant with friends 3 times a week. Well, I think one thing that Corona has shown us, especially with the restaurants closed, people started home cooking, but people also started moving their social gatherings. So like, well, let's have some friends over, let's make a salad or oven veg or like whatever it is together, right? So we still have the social element, and then we only go out once a week or once a month. For example, I go out to restaurant something like once or twice a month, and it tends to be related to conference. So
Hmm.
my circle of friends, we go for walks. We go stand up paddling. We go to the trampoline park, right? We do stuff like that. And or, it's not that we don't eat together. We might make it a picnic. We might cook together. So basically find your alternative ways of what is easy for you, what are the easy wins, what are the boundaries for you. And I think as you shift those boundaries, as you become more comfortable with things, other things open up. I mean, case in point, right? Over my lifetime, when I look at what I've had for breakfast, so when I was a kid, sort of preschool, etc., I was having cereal for breakfast. And we're talking Kellogg's, like the really sugar variety,
Yeah.
right? Again, we didn't know any better at the time. Then when I was in school later on, this was in England, and we had white toast with chocolate spread for breakfast. You do that for a couple of years, right? And so again, when you're a teenager, it doesn't show, right?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily put on the weight if you do a lot of exercise, again, because your system is still relatively clean and you're still okay to clean things out. Try that 20 years later, you'll notice pretty much immediately. And then people have acne and all the rest of it. And I think that the sort of typical teenage problems that I think most of them are not necessarily necessary. So okay, so we were at toast with chocolate spread. Then when I was university, I was having porridge. So being very English, we're having essentially oatmeal, right? Again, you
Hmm.
spike yourself. I've got 3 different types of breakfast, each of which have completely spiked my sugar in the morning. And for those who know the hormones, cortisol is actually at its highest in the morning anyway, just naturally to wake you up. Now, high cortisol means you've got higher blood sugars. If you're now having sugary cereals on top of that, you're barely woken up and you've got your first spike in the morning, right? Then I sort of got into the fitness community later on. I was like, well, you need to have chicken 5 times a day. And I'm like, okay, guess what I was having for breakfast? I literally got up, put the chicken in the oven, had a shower, ate the chicken, and got on with my day. So you're literally going from sugary cereals to white toast to porridge to chicken. And at some point, I said, oh, well, we need to go intermittent fasting now. So go skip breakfast. Okay, it took me a while to get used to that. But then in the end, I was skipping breakfast. Okay, so we've got 5 different types of breakfast. Actually, interestingly, none of which, as a woman in her teens, 20s, 30s, were what I should have done. Because
Yeah.
again, because it kind of meant I ended up having a very short intermittent fasting window. So my feeding window was something like 5 to 6 hours, which on a hormone level, and I didn't realize it was stressing me out because, all the big guys were doing. I literally had a t-shirt, like I cracked the 5-hour feeding window. And again, if you guy, that's amazing, right? If you're woman, like, please do not do this. It's very, we'll cover this on the podcast in various different angles. But they're just things that, again, because the studies on these things were done on the 8-kilo white male. I think they were also done on obese people, so you could really see the benefits of blood sugar, etc., etc. It's not a representative set of data, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my point is find out what your boundaries are, what you can shift, but also do your research. Make sure it's actually working for you.
I really like that. It's so hard. Like especially like when you say now you make the podcast for women, like there's so little data. Like even for men, like even like I'm like the stereotypical person that the studies have been done on. Like even there's so much insecurity. Like I don't know if things actually work for me. I don't know if the studies it's like when you say no, like what is the right thing, even if you do the research. For you say you're already in biohacking for the last 15 years. So how do you approach that? Like how do you find what is actually working for you with all this insecurity and little studies?
Yeah, and I think it's a couple of things. Measure, and I'm talking both, definitely get an aura or, whatever your ring of choice will be. I've been experimenting with CGMs quite a bit, actually, with some surprising results. Some were surprising, some were not. I actually recorded an episode with Marie-Louise Huber, who's the head of nutrition for Hello Inside. Obviously, they're very CGM focused, and had some very, very interesting insights, especially around cycle syncing for that, which again is like, people don't tell you that, but there's been a lot of anecdotal evidence that for women at certain times of your cycle, things are different, right? And that's not to worry about. That's just for you to know and act accordingly, basically.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is really find out what your baseline is. And I think in order to do that, you need to have done a big effort to clean up. So for example, I've had many, many years ago, so one of my team members, he was from the north of England, so very heavy drinking culture, basically. And he did this challenge. He was the kind of type that he didn't really remember the night from Friday to Monday, basically. And he was the kind of type that would do that. He did a challenge at some point, like, Sober January or one of these things. And then he came into the office on Monday, not having had a single pint since Friday. And he's like, oh my God, I feel so amazing. Judith, do you feel like this all the time? I'm like, yeah, like why would I ever not want to feel like this? So for him, this was a complete revelation. For me, this was obvious, right? So I think make an effort to do that. It might even be as far as, and I'm not saying necessarily do that because it's different for everyone. And you do need to, please do, before you do water fasting, please do your research. There's a couple of things you really need to be aware of. It might even be that you do an extended water fast. And in order to get to that extended water fast, it might also be that you change your feeding window. If you're constantly eating, you don't know what hunger feels like. That is one baseline, for example. If you're constantly eating shit, you don't know how good you could feel, right? If you're constantly overtraining, you don't know what you could feel like in a recovered state and how much you could really do when you do that. For example, I've got a Catalyst, which is basically an EMS at home device. I think especially the guys in Germany will know what EMS is. It's this electro space suit, basically electrical muscular stimulation. And the Catalyst have actually done the first home version, which I'm in love with.
So it's essentially it's like it stimulates your muscles through electric
you basically apply
impulses.
the current straight to the muscle, and basically that allows you to do heavier workload. It's not that the suit is doing the work for you in the sense you don't have to do anything, as in you will be, after 10 minutes, you are pouring sweat. It is a very hard workout, but it enables you to do much harder workout than you could do if you were lifting weights, for example, if you literally, if you weren't, even if you were running or doing some other HIIT training or something. So the point I'm trying to make here is there's a really interesting book by Doug what was his name? Doug McDuff, I think his name was. An interesting name. The book is called Body by Science, and he's basically saying, okay, you need to go to complete exhaustion, but then you need 5 to 7 days recovery. So if you're doing the kind of gym body, I'm at the gym every single day, and even if you're rotating your muscle groups, etc., which you could do the MS, but there's no point doing that because you might as well do the full workout altogether. So literally, I'm doing this workout. I mean, the proper strength, like I'm screaming at the top of my lungs to be able to deal with the resistance.
Yeah.
It is really tough, but oh my god, it really works. I do that every 5 to 7 days. And in between, I go salsa dancing, and as I said, I go stand up paddling. I go for walks with my friends. I do some light stuff in between, but like the real muscle building, longevity, muscle, etc., I do that every 5 to 7 days. And if I do it more often than that, A, I will feel like shit, excuse my French, and B, I'm not doing my body a favor, right? I'm actually losing muscle, not building it. But people need to know that.
But how do you figure out like what is the right balance for you? Because like
Data. You need to
yeah.
become very in tune with your body, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that means both the hard data, again, like the auras, etc., like your CGM, but also means that the soft data, like how am I feeling today? And how much of that is related to the fact is the sun shining or not? How much is related to the fact that, I
So
spoke to
many
my best friend
confounds.
on the phone yesterday, right? Just be very, I mean, personally, I have to say I hate journaling because I forget and it feels like a therapy session every single time, like, how was your day? But I think it really does make a difference. But it only makes a difference if A, you do it, and B, you actually go through the data later on and you spot the patterns. And I think as AI is becoming better, there's a couple of things on the market also coming out to the market which give you a lot of sort of the AI data layer between a lot of your wearables, so basically integrates that.
Yes.
I mean, there's one called Vary, which does that for your blood glucose data. There's another one which I'm trying to remember. There's a Swedish company which I think they're in pre-launch at the moment. They're basically doing the ultimate all data integration. Basically, just feed everything in there, and again, most things happen automatically, right? Especially on
How's
your
the one
hard
called?
data.
The
I'm trying to S something smacks something. Don't quote me on this. Swedish company. I don't think they're out yet. I've seen the
yeah.
investment deck, so I don't know how far they are yet. But this will be this concept done well. I think it's going to be extremely powerful. But
I
then again, it brings you
totally
back
agree.
to the bottlenecks, right? Are people actually doing it? Like you've got the data telling you need to go to bed on time. Are you doing it? Yes or no?
Yeah. Oh, I do
And I
see
have
that.
to say, I don't always go to bed on time, right? I'm as guilty of this as anyone. But again, this comes down to what is easy for you. For me, not drinking is easy. For me, having a decent fasting window is easy. For me, doing a water fast every once in a while is not easy, but doable. More doable than perhaps for other people. So yeah.
Maybe coming back a bit to Zelar City. What is that you're most excited about in Zelar
Being
City?
on stage, obviously. No, I think for me, again, it's a community, right? Coming back to this biohacked entrepreneurs village I was telling you about that I really want to build. I think this is very much a precursor to both to that, but also I think that the concept in general of people being with their tribe, as people I think are more mobile in the sense that they can do whatever is their life's purposes, that the work they need to do to reach their life's purpose, excuse me, they can do from many more locations now. And I think using that to find your environment and that's your people, that is, I keep banging on about sunshine, but for me this is such a big thing. What it does with me physically, physiologically,
Yes.
psychologically, I think has such a big impact. And people forget. People get to November and they're like, life's a bit shit. I'm like, yeah, but when was the last time you've actually and again, what is the downstream effect on? You don't have the sunshine, you feel a little less motivated, you might do a little less exercise, you might end up eating something you shouldn't be eating. You need to be aware
So
of these things. Yeah,
yeah.
and exactly. And if you're in a for example, one of the ideas we want to have for these entrepreneurs villages is also, when I talk infrastructure, I'm not just saying we're going to have a cryo chamber and all the rest of it. Of course we will, but it's also the idea is we'll have a chef on site. So, for example, the idea is that when you come with your partner, you come with your kids, even for those who do, or you who want to have them down the line, um, we know what your nutritional profile is. We know again, for me, data, when are you training or not, when you need the extra calories, when you need the extra protein, what allergies, what preferences do you have? And basically, this is all done for you. There's no need to do the shopping, the cooking, the cleaning, etc. Like all these basics that distract you from your life's purpose. Which again, for me, it's like energy, work, love, right? You need to have the energy to do the work, to fulfill the life's purpose. And then you have your love, which is your family, your community, your love for the wider world, basically for the humanity you want to give back to with your life's purpose. It's all interconnected. So I think Zelar City for me really is an amazing prototype. And I hope we're going to have many, many more of these.
Yeah, I truly agree. Okay, thank you a lot, Judith. Before we end this, do you have any last things you want to share with the people watching or listening?
Well, turn up to Zelar City. I think that'd be a great start. And do your basics. Simple as that.
Okay. Thank you very much. So this was my conversation with Judith Mueller. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Here's another video that you can watch. And if you're interested in Zelar City, I put some links in the description. Bye-bye.